get started. So we start.
Hi.
Hello.
Go.
Yes. You are good. And you begin.
Good evening. My name's Scott Giese, Park Superintendent with the City of Frederick. Thank you for coming out tonight and your continued interest and support in the redesign and renovation of Hill Street Park. We're excited to be able to share with you the initial concept plan and design. If you're familiar with the project, we've chosen to work with MHG, teamed with Dave Post and his designers to come up with a plan incorporating the public feedback we received from the online survey and the initial public meeting that was held earlier in the spring. They've taken that direct input and they've been hard at work throughout the summer working on this concept plan and, incorporating, like I said, both the public feedback, the site constraints, the features that already exist in Hill Street Park, and of course the budget limitations. But we think we've got a great plan and ready to share it and hear what you have to say about it. So I won't stand up here and ramble about it too much more, but turn it over to Dave and his design team to share the plan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Perry Holt-Ronzi. I'm a landscape architect at MHG working with Dave Post on the design for Hill Street Park. And I'm excited to present our ideas and our master plan for this park for you today. So I imagine that if you're here, you probably have a decent sense of where this park is and what's going on there now. But just in case, I just kind of want to provide a little bit of context. So we are here now at Butterfly Ridge Elementary School. Hill Street Park is the 700,000 square foot park, less than a couple miles from here. This is, our existing conditions. This blue boundary is, roughly the outline of the project itself and the property boundaries of this project in question. Just to kind of orient you to looking at this in plan view, because I know plan view can be a little bit difficult to read. These are the existing multi-use sports fields. Down here on the right, we have the existing multi-purpose sport courts. Over here is the skate park. Down here is the playground and the pavilion. And then over here on the west side is the basketball court. So back in April, we had a really useful and helpful public kind of design input meeting that really helped us focus in on some design criteria that we kept in mind while working on the design for this site. So some highlights from that that hopefully you'll see reflected in the design today are really a focus on better walking paths, better seating, gathering spaces, more shade, more exciting playground than what's out there now, better safety because, criminality and policeability have been a big concern at this park in past years, as well as improved amenities for public events, for sports, for activities. And finally, a reduction in the speeding cars that often show up in this neighborhood. In addition to that, there are some code criteria from the city, from zoning ordinance, as well as state of Maryland requirements involving accessibility for people with disabilities of all sorts, sports field repair, again, safety and policeability, as well as stormwater management. Additional factors that we as designers wanted to take into account are things like noise control, integrating that stormwater management effectively into the design, and incorporating a lot of native plants and trees into the design, as largely for ecological purposes, because that's another thing that the public expressed interest in having more of on this site. So as we walk through this design, I'm going to kind of just give you a kind of brief walkthrough of all of the various different elements of the park, of this master plan. And since we have fewer people here today, I think it would probably, be nice to have kind of a conversation. If you want to raise your hand, if you've got questions or comments, kind of as we go through, I'll kind of present each of these elements to you. And then if anyone has questions or comments, we can discuss that and then have plenty of time for questions and such at the end. So the improvements of the park are going to be divided into, I guess you could say, 3 phases. The first phase is the majority of the park. A second phase will be down in this area of the existing multi-purpose courts. And then in a future phase outside of this project, not in this design, is the skate park improvements and the construction of the pump track. So, so just one of the elements in this design throughout the park is that we focused on is an improvement in pedestrian circulation and safety. So I'm just going to kind of touch on those elements first because they apply to most parts of this project. So, here we go. We're proposing an improved and widened system of multi-use paths as a network connecting different parts of the site. As well as a series of these raised and painted crossings to really, make those pedestrian crossings more obvious for cars, as well as to slow vehicular traffic and improve pedestrian safety in those areas. Both within the park, as you can kind of see, various crosswalks. I'll kind of point these out as we go through, but also connecting to areas outside the park, such as down Hill Street, up Hill Street, connecting to the elementary school, and I guess sort of connecting to the nearby neighborhood, although I guess there aren't any formal paths over there that we're connecting to. This over here is more. So you can see in this lower right here, those are basically, if you think of them like speed bumps, they're kind of raised to the height of the curb so that ideal for wheelchairs. Honestly, that's part of the appeal of raised crossings, is that they're at grade with the sidewalks next to them, so wheelchair users don't have to go down a curb ramp into a road in order to cross. And so they have that kind of double function for accessibility and for lowering speed of traffic. On our walkthrough, I should stand closer to the mic. On our walkthrough of the park, we're going to start at this southern entrance on Hill Street, down here on the southern end of the site. So kind of zooming in on that part. Again, one of the things that we are trying to focus on here is pedestrian safety, traffic control, reducing traffic speeds. So we're proposing to add this median here in order to kind of help control and direct traffic, make it a little clearer how the one-way circulation throughout the site works, as well as provide more of these raised crosswalks for pedestrian safety, like I was discussing before. And then kind of moving counterclockwise along our route through the site, stepping into this kind of phase 2 area right at the beginning. So the primary goal of the renovations in phase 2 is centered around the conversion of one of the 2 existing multi-purpose courts into 2 regulation-sized futsal courts. The goal here is to provide more different areas for people playing futsal, soccer, skating, using these courts for any sort of purpose, to have more different places to do that, to accommodate more different groups of people, as well well as to provide additional lighting and then additional amenities such as our shade structure here, some additional seating, some pleasantly shaded planting areas, as well as renovations to this existing parking lot to improve circulation, to meet zoning ordinance requirements for things like shade, and also to introduce some more pedestrian crossings through that area again to improve pedestrian safety on the site. So again, if anyone wants to, raise their hand with any comments or questions at any point, sure.
Putting trees down there, who's gonna take them off and people need to do? Is that gonna be more expensive for the city to come up and clean them than the trees?
I mean, my understanding is that, the city is has it within their budget and scheduling ability to, to maintain additional plants.
No, I mean, when they
Oh.
go in on the courts, is somebody coming up weekly to clean them? I mean, that's what's gonna have to do, it. Nobody's gonna use them.
That's not really true. One of the things that we were speaking with skateboarders, especially about, and soccer players, and at the last meeting, the people I've spoken to since then, most of those people are perfectly happy to pick up a broom, sweep it off for their own safety. That's something they're used to doing. It's just kind of part of being in an outdoor space. You'll also notice that we're not, having big trees hanging over the courts. They have enough space to be growing that they're not hanging over the edges of the court, so they can still provide that more pleasant ambiance and shade without really intruding on the use of the site. Do you have a question?
Why are we having two futsal courts? Why is one of them becoming a pickleball court?
So, sorry, it looked like you were continuing to sign, and I just wanted to make sure.
No.
Okay.
Just saying it's a very popular sport.
Okay, gotcha. So my understanding was that, most of what people have expressed interest in is playing futsal. There are a lot of soccer players, futsal players who use the site now. There wasn't really much interest expressed in pickleball earlier in our information gathering process. Sure.
Hi, I'm Dave Post. With pickleball, there is a noise factor, which for people who have hearing, it does become a factor. And to have one as close as that one to the neighborhood there can become a noise issue. So that was another reason not to have that at this park.
Yep.
Just take the question on the shade pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a standing shade pavilion or will there be tables and anything?
The intention is for there to be benches underneath it so that it's shaded seating, places for people to stand, places for people to sit.
Do you know if there will be anything electrical?
I don't think that's currently in the design, but we're definitely providing electrical to this area because part of the proposed improvements include lighting. So that's definitely something we can discuss with the city to see if that's within kind of what they want to provide. But that's a good question. We'll definitely make note of that.
I think as people use this for events and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things
That's a good point. Yeah,
that happen whenever
definitely.
it's possible. There's a budgetary process.
Mm-hmm.
That area house is very, very, very close to what you're talking about. Shape. If you're there, what we'll do, here's that, do what last time, like something else.
Mm-hmm.
More lighting. The lighting that's already there is spectacular. Or to do it, it's not. Just be aware, where some of those trees are their houses.
Well, those trees are shown where there are actually existing trees, but I.
Like
I definitely.
Maybe that's like really close to people's
I definitely understand the concern, but we definitely want to follow those principles of avoiding light trespass and including shielding and focusing the light where it's needed and not on adjacent properties, for sure. Pardon? That's what we were, yeah, that's, yeah. Okay, so moving further counterclockwise around the site up towards the two multi-use sports fields. So one of the main focuses of this project, or one of the big parts of this project, I should say, is regrading, resurfacing, improving drainage, and improving the natural turf quality on these fields. As well as providing new amenities and equipment like new multi-use goals for both football and soccer, new bleachers, new player seating, as well as, again, kind of those amenities in the surrounding areas like pathways connecting these areas that aren't there now, and those raised crosswalks for access to these areas in a safer manner than exists now. So moving again counterclockwise from there over to this northwestern corner of the site. So again, the skate park and pump track improvements aren't within our scope. So we don't have any specific information on the specific design of those, but we have been working with the city and with some experts in designing pump tracks and similar facilities to kind of get a general sense of how this will lay out, how this will connect to the site, what exactly the users are hoping to get out of these facilities, so that we can really incorporate those into the design of the site. And so a couple of the ways that we're doing that here are planning for these connections so people can hop on and hop off the pump track at multiple different points, as well as incorporating some of those necessary stormwater management facilities into these areas so that they can have a decorative function and make the pump track a little more interesting and fun than just, a concrete path through this part of the site. So we've just got some kind of illustrative imagery here to give you a sense of a similar kind of pump track design at a different location. I think this one's in Melbourne, I could be wrong. As well as just kind of an idea of what these stormwater management facilities look like. We really want to integrate some plantings of native plants, pollinator species. That was something that a lot of people had expressed interest in previous meetings and in our surveys to gain feedback about what was important to people about this site. I'm going to skip on from here because, like I said, we're not directly working on this part of the site, so I'm not really the one to answer questions about it. And then moving down, again, counterclockwise further south, down to the playground area. So the playground area is divided into a couple different areas for kids of different ages and different skill levels and different interests. So this is the equipment that we're proposing for this little area for kids ages 2 to 5 with age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate size climbers, slides, balancing equipment, stuff like that. And then over here, some more rope climbing towers for kids who want to get higher up, kids who have more dexterity, kids who are older, that kind of thing. And then finally, this other larger area for, again, older kids who are interested in more of a challenge, incorporating some swinging elements, climbing elements, balance elements, all that sort of stuff. So we really want to convert what's kind of an existing older playground into something that's more modern, more the things that kids and parents tend to be more interested in these days. So So this is the specific equipment that we're looking at including. We've been working with a local playground designer to kind of make sure that we're meeting all of the safety requirements, fall zones, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate kinds of best practices and requirements and guidelines. So this is the specific equipment that we'd like to install. Yeah. I don't. The smallest one has a slide. The other two do not have slides. Well, your 2-year-old will love the slide for in the 2-year-old area. So, okay, good question. So, and then surrounding this area to provide a little shade, to make it a little interesting, we've added some trees, some planting, referencing the history of this site as an orchard. These small trees in orderly rows to provide a little shade while still not impinging on, visibility for safety concerns or for supervision of children, that sort of concerns. As well as providing things like bike racks over here, accessible parking over here, in addition to the existing parking, so that the site is accessible to people of all ages, all methods of transportation. And then continuing eastward, we have renovations to the existing pavilion. So the renovations that are intended for the pavilion are mostly interior, including new finishes and fixtures in the bathrooms, new heating and lighting in the bathrooms, as well as lighting under the outdoor section of the pavilion. Again, really focused on that area just for the people using that part of the site. In addition, we're replacing the existing furnishings, so picnic tables, benches, trash cans, adding some grills so people can barbecue, as well as, again, adding those really important connections to other parts of the site so people can have that easy movement. Parents can easily supervise their children on the playground while still, comfortably in the shade, all that good stuff. Just making sure I didn't leave anything out because there are a lot of words on this slide. And yeah, again, incorporating those stormwater management facilities into that kind of aesthetic quality of the design to make what people have described as a barren and empty and boring feeling site into something a little more lifelike and lively and colorful, as well as friendly to pollinators and other insects. So, moving on to the last central section of our site. This is really kind of like nodes of connection in the center of the site between multiple different parts of the park. So starting kind of down here, one of the fun things about this site, about Hill Street Park, is this existing little formation collection of boulders. And we really wanted to emphasize that as a place where, we saw kind of teens hanging out, sitting there, kids kind of, on the rocks, running between the rocks, people just kind of hanging out. And we wanted to really emphasize that as a place where people did like to spend time, even though it's kind of this exposed central area. By, again, providing that kind of access to it along this path, but also providing a row of these tall, narrow trees to provide a little bit of a sense of enclosure, like a little circular outdoor room, but without impinging on visibility for safety, for parental supervision, stuff like that. And then connecting further north, we have this central seating area, this kind of circular node area that kind of connects those points between the kind of more play areas down here, the sports areas over here, the skate park over here, some of that parking to the north, as just this area that provides some shade, provides some picnic seating so that, people who are skating, people who are playing will have, a place to kind of sit and hang out for a little bit, take a break, take a breather, and then, get back to their activities, get back to what they were doing. Because we definitely want this to be a really comfortable site, a really environmentally pleasant site with lots of shade, lots of comfort, So a little bit of decorative planting to keep things interesting, especially in these areas that we hope will see a lot of use. So that's kind of the general summary of what we've got on this site. So hopefully kind of that walkthrough kind of gives you a general sense of the kind of layout and the master plan of what we're proposing. Some of these things are, kind of still potentially up in the air for change if there's a lot of feedback on that. But we're really excited to move forward with kind of developing some further details of the design for this park moving forward. So with that in mind, we'd like to open the floor at this point to any additional questions, any additional feedback or thoughts that you might have.
In the lower right.
Mhm.
Will all three courts be lit?
That's the intention, yes. But again, with like keeping those best practices in mind of keeping the light focused in the places where it is needed and not trespassing where it's not. Sir, did you have a question or a comment?
So I'm looking at a golden line lines. I appreciate the work that's been done thus far. You can see all of the improvements. It's amazing. It's well received.
Thank you.
A question about the bike paths. Are those bike paths going to connect with any other bike paths in the area?
So they're simply just in this park. We want to connect to those like sidewalks and, the especially existing along Hill Street. But like our scope is pretty much just the property boundaries of Hill Street Park. So we won't be making any off-site connections beyond that.
Have you researched where a potential connection could be down the line?
That is not something that was on our radar, but that's something we can look into and talk to the city about for sure.
Another question about pedestrian crossing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's an opportunity here to engage the community in helping do some of the design of this, including painting or employing local artists to paint those pedestrian areas that would allow the community to have a little bit more of a sense of ownership of this park.
I really like that idea. That's definitely something that we can look into and consider as we move forward for sure. Thank you. I think that our representatives from the city probably have a better sense of construction timelines than I do.
Yeah. The next steps moving forward would be to take this concept and get down in kind of the nuts and bolts to where we have blueprints, buildable construction designs. And at that point, we can take it forward for a formal bid process to actually get a construction company hired and on board and contracted to move dirt and then build this. So I'm not sure National Night Out next summer is in danger, but maybe the year after that.
What's the timeline that your implementation, will it be done in phases?
The plan is to do it in phases, mostly because of funding restrictions. Right now, the budget probably wouldn't allow all of this to be built at once. But the main part of the park, the majority, phase one would be finished all in one go. And depending on the timing of when we can finalize construction documents and final blueprints and get this to bid, I can't really speak to the construction timeline, but Dave might have a better answer on how long it takes to go from here to actually being out to bid.
I was just thinking once we get to bid, you finalize your selection, move the dirt, day one to phase one completion, how many months?
I'd hate to put a number out there, but a construction project this size, probably 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, no one's gonna hold
Yeah, it's a 10-acre park. It's going to be a fairly big project once it gets to fruition. Yep.
Yeah, that's always a factor too. Our plan is, once the city, I think, has approved this design, is to get into the construction documents phase and get into permits by the end of the year. So that's what we're shooting for.
Are there any other questions or comments before we wrap this up?
Will these slides be available?
That is a good question. I'm not
Mike,
sure.
Yeah, we're happy to do that.
Well, thank you all for coming today. It's been lovely talking to you. It's been lovely getting your input, and it's definitely something that we want to keep in mind as we move forward with the design. Thank you.